What is going on, crypto enthusiasts? What's going on, Liquidity Citadel? Hopefully you guys are having a beautiful, beautiful start to your morning, enjoying some of this New York action that we're seeing. Obviously last night going into London and going into Asia had a drop, had some consolidation inside of those areas, seeing a little bit of a pump going on right now. Now the question B, is that going to sustain? What are some levels that we should be looking at? Is ETH going to do the same thing that it always does? Is it going to fully retrace this entire pump? Survey says most likely yes, but nevertheless, let's look at some levels together. Let's identify, some targets that we're looking at here. I'm going to take you through a 4-hour, and I'm also going to take you through a 15-minute, things like that. So it's going to start with the 15-minute here. Ideally, what I was looking at here is the way that I was measuring this out for myself is I was looking at 15-minute ranges. So 15-minute high, 15-minute low, and then essentially this level right over here, which was 1830, 1831, depending on the exchange that you're trading on, but let's just say 1831. Really wanted to see that level to maintain itself. Now, the first candle, it closed above, which that's a good sign for continuation. Then we had a retest above this area right over here. Now, what I'm looking at in the sense of like short term, we have these levels that sit right over here, right at like 1903. Like these are key levels that need to be flipped. There's an EMA that sits right here on at this level. That's what this line is that you see here. That EMA needs to be flipped if we're going to see continuation to the upside. So I'm looking at this saying, okay, well, in the event that we do come back down, because that's kind of one of the natures of what ETH does, is I'd be looking at something like this, looking at this previous high right over here. So let's come into like this zone right over here inside this area, and then just what ETH does, full retracement all the way back down. So we did long inside of our VIP section early this morning. We had some pre-market discussion as far as what was going on inside of ETH. If you guys are not part of the Discord, the description is inside of our YouTube link here. So do check that out. Let's take a look at this. That's not it. There we are. So we were kind of discussing that early this morning as we got into pre-market. I was initially targeting like 1780s and some change, just based on this count right over here, like 1795. 1787 inside of these zones. This is initially what I was targeting, but we came right to that 1.272 level, 1801.49. That's essentially where we went to. And then we started discussing as far as, that 15-minute level right over here. obviously maintaining itself. So the point being to that is not to impress you, just more so impress upon that it behooves you to be inside of, not just inside of our server, but to have VIP access, because these are some of the things that we discussed pre-market, so that we have an idea as far as what's going on and you're not necessarily chasing the move. And then you're going to be around like-minded individuals to kind of give you guidance through that. So that's something that we discussed early this morning and that we're taking advantage of now. Now I'm sharing with you guys here as far as what a potential short will look like. Yeah, good job, boy. Your idea was accurate. Good job, buddy. Let's look at this, something like that. And so 4 hour, I do want to go over to a 4 hour real quick. We do have some green dots that are printing here in the cipher that are just below. The weekly hasn't printed one just yet. That's one thing that I'm kind of hesitant about. That's the reason why the shorts kind of would make sense in theory, right? We are in some like dangerous grounds or dangerous areas if you're going to start shorting. Yes, I will acknowledge that. However, we didn't get a true buy signal on a weekly. Obviously, weekly being better data, better overall structure in the sense of moves. But I will say this. I was looking at a sequential count. I was discussing this with you guys yesterday. So this is kind of one of my theories I'm looking at. We obviously have some shaved heads that sit right over here. I'm using index. It may reflect a little bit differently on a different exchange, but index is going to pull all the data from all the exchanges. So I really like to utilize index when I'm trying to map out ideas. But you can see here on this current candle right here, we had an open of 1969.44. We had a high of 1969.44 shaved head. Then we had the next following candle, or previous candle, excuse me, 2055.86, 2055.86 being the high and open. So we have two shaved heads that sit inside this area. That's the first part. When we start to see shaved heads, essentially price action likes to revisit these areas. Let's turn that around. Price action likes to revisit these zones altogether. Now, keeping that in mind, that thesis in mind, we have a bullish setup phase that's currently printing right now. We're on a 6 right now. And if you're confused with TD9 sequentials, when I refer to bullish setup phase, essentially this is pointing towards lower lows. Hence bullish setup phase, setting you up for an entry for a bullish move when the trend starts to run into exhaustion. Now let's count 4 back. We go 1, 2, 3, 4. For whatever reason, if that were to happen this week, for whatever reason, if we were just to see some type of holy cow move, this would be the level that I would test, right? It would be right somewhere right over here. Let's go ahead and darken that up just so we can make reference to it a little bit easier. And we're gonna color that blue, and we'll thicken that up a little bit. There we go. Pick something like that. So first thought is saying, okay, well, if, and this is a big fat if, right? And I'm talking about this current week, right? It's what, Tuesday? Yeah, it's Tuesday. So getting to this area right over here and then coming back down, obviously, because if we close underneath here, the bullish setup phase is still intact, right? It's still pointing towards lower lows. So this would be the first area that I'd look at saying, okay, well, this would be a potential short inside of this zone if we get into this area. Now, the next part about that would be is, let's just assume, again, let's say that we do pull up to this level. We close right underneath it. We don't close above it, because if we close above it, then we change the setup phase. Then we go into a bearish setup phase. And we'll look at both, but let's just make the assumptions that we come up to this level and we hold that level right underneath it. So we're still inside of that bullish setup phase. Now we go into next week. Now, obviously, if we come up into this area on this current candle, not only do we clear the imbalance on this current week, we also clear the imbalance on the second week. So now we have imbalance that is now filled and cleared on those levels. The next week is going to be, counting 4 back. It would be 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it's going to be this candle right over here. So again, making the assumption that price action moves up, taps that level, clears the imbalance. Most individuals are like, hey, we're going higher, we've bottomed out, we're going to the moon now. Whatever that dialect or that narrative sounds like, you may be starting to hear some of that. The next week is really going to be crucial for us to hold right above, because price action, although it may go up and clear this area, if it starts to close underneath here, then it goes right back into a bullish setup phase, right? So as a matter of fact, it would still be inside of a bullish setup phase. We're making the assumption that this candle would move up to the upside, something like this, into this area, and then closing underneath. So it's still bullish setup phase. Next week comes around. Next week will open inside of a bearish setup phase, because it's going to open up. Let's assume it closed above here, above this line, which is 2089. Let's just make the assumption it closes. It would reflect as the setup phase is changing, but as soon as that drops underneath this 2089 level, the setup phase goes right back into a bullish setup phase. So trying to simplify this for us, if we were to move up in this week, if we were to move up inside of this week into this 2268 area, the next week would be a confirmation week. I would anticipate to see some dips, maybe below this line. I would anticipate that, but it's really going to be about the close, the body of that week, and we really want to see that the body closes above here. That would give us the opportunity to say, okay, well, we've bottomed out here short-term wise, and now we can start looking at true relief rallies that are going to start building up going into the later months, right? Going into March, the remainder of March, going into April. I think maybe like June, July, we start actually breaking down and then start coming right back down again. Some of you guys are familiar with some of my setups that I have from a higher time frame, from a weekly, 2-week, and a monthly. I do anticipate ETH is going to go much lower inside of the year. I believe we should be tapping into lower 1200s, 1100s, and even potentially 3-digit ETH. That is still on the board. That hasn't changed at all. But I think we're going to have a relief rally, because we've had what, 6 months of red candles. The last time we had something like that was back in 2018, 2018, and that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We had 7 red candles in a row. So we haven't seen that in a while. Typically, 6 red candles in a row, you're going to see some type of relief. So that's what kind of takes me back to saying on the weekly, we could see this type of move giving us that relief, and then we'll get like 2 to 3 months of relief, and then we're going to come right back down again. So those are ultimate target. Like if you're longing from these zones, yes, there are some shorter TPs. I had just mentioned here, when we started this stream, 1874. I want to see what that reaction looks like right over here inside of this area, because for the most part, most pumps have been retraced. It's evident in the last 6 months. If you look at a monthly, we've been just nosediving, if you will. Another thing I want to point out here on the monthly, it's this this fib level right over here. We've tapped into this fib level quite a few times. Basically, I'm measuring 2025 low and 2025 high. I'm measuring those 2 swing points. We've retraced 88% of that move thus so far. That's pretty aggressive. That's pretty sharp. Those are, to me, from a LA wave thesis strategy, those are wave A characteristics. Right. So wave B would put us somewhere inside of these areas. I have from like 2400, 2800, 2900. I have those levels that are already mapped out. I don't want to jump ahead and say, okay, those are the levels that we're going to, because I need confirmation that wave A is done and complete. So although we are long, it gives you that uncomfortable feeling at the end of the day, because you just don't know. You just don't know. You don't know if you've bottomed out here. You don't know if you're going to have any type of relief that's going to start showing its face here going into the month of March. We just have to play diligently and work with the probabilities. Let's look at a 2-week real quick. Usually when we get into this level, we print green dots. That's the last time we printed a green dot. That was back in 2022. And that was back in 2018. and this was in 2025, right when we got this move. So the move came first, and then the green dot printed. Same thing here. You can see where these waves are starting to open up, very similar to this move right over here. Very, very, very similar. That's a 2-week though. Let's look at a 5-day real quick. Yeah, see, 5-day hasn't printed a green dot yet. 3-day did, but 3-day printed something right over here and then ran kind of flat. So not the best, not the best. Let's look at USDT real quick, because I'm utilizing USDT for confirmations. So USDT, the way I have this structured, I believe I've shared this with you guys before. Yeah, so I've viewing this entire move that we've had up as a wave 3, and essentially we're going into an ABC. And so you can see the same setup. So, you know, the ABC is still printed in from the daily. So this is kind of what I'm looking at here, measuring from this swing to this pivot right over here, because price action pivot. Now looking at the fib levels as far as where price action can go to, 618, 88, 0.88. And yes, wave B can actually potentially go into extension levels, you know, 9.2, which would be very scary for ETH. But right now it's respecting, you know, normal wave B levels. You know, it's retraced, you know, 61% of this move down thus so far, which is relatively healthy for wave B. And then I want to kind of drill down on this a little bit. We were highlighting this inside of the war room just yesterday. And these pink and mauve looking candles, this coloration, it's from an indicator. It's part of my TD9 sequential indicator. However, like when these candles start flashing, it's starting to show exhaustion candles. And I'll give you an example of what that looks like on down to the left. So, you know, this whole move up, and then, you know, it started coming down, but then it just ran into exhaustion, and then it started moving down. Let's look for another one. Now here's another example here, right? And it could be short-lived too. Don't get me wrong. It could be short-lived and then it just all of a sudden pumps. It just depends on where it is in the trend, right? This candle right here was still having to be on a sideways move. And we can see we ran into an exhaustion like so right over here. And then we had a retracement. You know, we had roughly a, you know, 10% retracement on USDT. So that's not always going to play out like that, meaning we're not going to always see like a 10% retracement. We could see more for that matter. I mean, honestly, I am looking for more. That's just my own personal bias. I'm looking for like 15% from those levels, because this kind of feeds into wave 4. I believe that USDT is entering into a wave 4, or a wave C, if you will, from the ABC correction. And then, you know, wave 5 is going to be much higher. I believe wave 5 is going to be all-time highs. That's what would push ETH down much lower. But while this is, you know, finding its bottom for a wave 4, because this looks like it's developing a complex wave 4 inside this area, ETH is going to find some relief going on. So point being is, I'm starting to see some exhaustion candles that are appearing here in this area. If USDT just said, hey, you know what, screw it, we're just going to dump, then, you know, all shorts are really going to be invalidated here on ETH. We did get a red dot that printed here. I'm very, very skeptical about that, because we did print a red dot when we were right over here inside this area. It faded away, and then it came back again just now. So I really want to see this thing starting to hunch over. ADX wise, from a 4-hour perspective, you know, we tapped into a nice 60 level. We have a nice peak that's going on right now. So that peak is showing us that there's a loss of strength, but they're still dominant. They still have bullish dominance that's reflecting that. Let's actually look at the DMI on a 4-hour here real quick. Yeah, see, on a 4-hour, DMI has not peaked just yet. The trend is showing exhaustion. You know, we're at 100% here. Yes, we do have some buy signals that are reflecting here. We have some bottoming out moves on the money flow, and RSI is now starting to curve up. You know, if you're trading RSI, if you utilize RSI, anything that's underneath 50, the baseline of 50, is considered bearish at the end of the day. Hang on, guys. I got my window open. Massive loud noise outside. Give me a second. I'm back. Sorry about that. Where was I? Oh, yes, RSI. Right. So for RSI, if we're underneath this baseline, you know, price action is considered bearish. It needs to cross over this baseline to be inside of bullish territory. Let's kind of get a reflection of what that looks like. Mind you, I'm utilizing a 4-hour here. So, you know, this little tiny move that we had right over here, and we had a little pump, you know, RSI went above the 50, which was great. That was strong. We needed to see continuation, but then it crashed down underneath that 50, which ultimately led into, you know, more bearish territory altogether. I forgot to mention that, or maybe I've mentioned it before, but we do have a 9 failure that sits inside this area. Just kicks and giggles, just pointing that out. This is the count that I have, just as an FYI. That's what the count looks like. I'm probably going to play with this line a little bit here. I really don't need to. I can actually just utilize that. And the rectangle bottom thesis is still in play for us. It just kind of widened out a little bit for us. You know, it hasn't invalidated, because we'd obviously have to sweep 1744 to reach invalidation levels for that. So what I'm getting at is, you know, really we have a couple hits here. 1, 2, you know, we'll count that as a 3, and then we have a couple hits here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have a couple hits on these lines. You know, the breakout's got to be from here inside this area. If not, then we're stuck inside of this wide range. I'm perfectly okay with ETH closing at these levels. Right, I don't need it to full send in one move. Sure, that would be great, but let's just, you know, put a dosage of reality into this. Right, we're still inside of this range. So if ETH decides to close somewhere inside of this area, you know, 2170s, 2160s inside this area, you know, that kind of works with this narrative that I was sharing a little while ago inside of our server. You know, closing above this long-term trend line. But I mean, we got 4 days to do that. I don't see how that's going to be really feasible unless something aggressively happens inside of the market. So right now we just work until it's invalidated. Going back to that wave count, 2 different levels that I'm looking at. These are going to take some time, obviously. Let's look at a fib zone. Actually, I think I already have a fib zone associated with this. There you are. And I'm really working these fib zones from, you know, not all-time low, or at least our most recent low of 1744 to that little pop-up that we had that sat right around like 2150. So looking at these zones, you know, these are compression areas, but as we get into these zones altogether, you can see that the moves are gradually growing, and The growth doesn't determine the direction. It's just telling you once you get into that pocket, expect bigger moves. It could be up or it could be down. So as we've entered into this pocket right over here, you can see that these moves have gradually grown. Same thing over here, right? We're inside of this zone, then we had compression, 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 more compression, slightly bigger moves, but more compression, slightly bigger moves, more compression, slightly lower moves because we made a new low inside this zone. Same thing here, compression, bigger move down, swept a couple lows, swept a couple lows. So, you know, this lasts all the way until like the 28th. So the next 4 days, if you will, before we get into the next zone, where the next zone is going to have even bigger moves. And so that kind of points me towards saying, well, if we can kind of edge up here inside this area by the 28th, somewhere inside this zone, we have a good chance going into March, maybe kind of floating back down here inside this area again, but maybe seeing a good impulse. I have two different levels, you know, 24 30s inside that area or anywhere in between here. Really, these are just standard mathematics for wave threes. I usually start at a 1.618. That's typically going to be a weaker wave 3, but nevertheless a wave 3 level. And then we have more aggressive wave 3s, which are like 2.618 and above. Can it go higher? Yes, I've seen wave 3s that have 10s in front of them. But I'm just going to utilize some standard levels. We do have a CME gap that sits, I believe, right around like 2,600 and some change. Yeah, so actually 2,400s and some change. So right here in between, inside this area. So when we look at these levels, 24, you know, this starts filling in the CME gap. So I'm not ignoring that level. This is just me being pretty aggressive, saying, okay, these are levels we can go to. This feeds into my my monthly narrative for wave B. You know, I have targets that sit right around between like 2,600 and 2,900 for wave B, which would coincide with a wave 3 for ETH. But in the event that we just run up, you know, to this, you know, CME gap level inside of this area right over here. What did we say? 24. What was that again? What was that 24, 23? What did we say? 24, 34, excuse me. Yeah, that's right inside of this area right over here. Just underneath that 0.236 area. And that runs all the way up to, actually I have it marked out, 2641 and 2405. So 2623 was a pretty pivotal area from support. You know, we crashed to that level back in November. We had, you know, small little bounces that took us all the way up to, you know, 3,400. So, you know, 2,600 to 3,400. That was a decent amount of support. And obviously we crashed underneath that. So I wouldn't put it past, you know, to say, well, maybe ETH comes to this level, 2,600s, retest that area, flipped what would be support into resistance, because we just kind of violated straight through. We've never really actually truly retested it. And you can see that based on the gap. So that's what I was saying, like it puts this zone, this area right over here into question. And there's some other indicators and tools that I'll be utilizing to identify that as we get closer to there. But we got a lot of work to do. We got a lot of work to do before we can get out of the woods. A lot of work. All right, we got to break out of this range just to even have that narrative, have that conversation. And then we have to break out of 2,200 for the structure to change. I shared this inside of our server just yesterday. I'll pull it up for you guys real quick. And this was based on my analysis when we were at 1868. Right? But 1901 You know, these are short-term EMAs, you know, and if price action is rejecting, you know, lower EMAs, that's standard bearish thought process, or at least approach. We really need to cross over this 2263 for the entire structure to shift, right? And then there's obviously a bigger ceiling at 2527. That changes a lot, and the narrative can flip. It could flip into this narrative, which I have from a weekly, and that's the wrong chart. It's this weekly. You know, that could change the narrative here. Let's just make the assumption saying, okay, well, Saint, the heck with your wave counts and your corrections and all that. Let's just simplify it. Let's make the assumption that ETH just tested a long-term trend line, an uptrend line, and you're inside of an ascending triangle, right? Because we can see the ceiling right over here, and then we can see the ascension that's developing here inside of these areas, and then we're getting closer towards this apex, right? So price action is squeezing as we get into those levels. Could it always pump through? I mean, drop through? Yeah, 100%. It could always do that. But that measured move is redonkulous, because this is that measured move. Just as an FYI, you're going to go from your ceiling to your first valley, which is right over here inside that area, and then your breakout is going to be from wherever that top is. That's what that measured move looks like. I mean, that's extreme hopium for ETH. When that happens, I don't know. That's why I was kind of pointing towards these levels right over here with you guys, saying, you know, if these levels start to occur, right, we get to these 2263 and 2527, you know, we have some real structure that's changing. I don't think we're fully out of the woods yet. For me to sit there and look at my charts and say, yeah, we're going to all-time highs, like we've bottomed out, that's it. 1744 was the bottom for 2026. The narrative is going to change and we're heading towards all-time highs. Like 3900 has to be the level that has to be reclaimed at the end of the day. 3900 is going to be the real game changer, which is right over here inside this area. We'd have to reclaim that, and then we'd have the potential of moving higher. And that there's just a lot of work. There's a lot of work with that. I can check hype later, brother. We actually have a good trader inside VSA, inside of our server, who I believe he does trade hype. You want to take a look at his corner and, you know, type in hype. Ooh, it's getting warm. You can see some of his setups that are in there. But personally, I'm not positioned in it. So I don't want to change kind of what we're discussing here. So let's go over to like an 8-minute here. Let's see what's developing overall. Yeah, we're getting closer to that area. Let's go to 15-minute. Yeah, we've got a nice 7 that's printing thus so far. I need to fix that. There we go. That's more in line. All right. So shout out to all my VIP people that were able to catch some of these entries early this morning. Hopefully you guys are going to enjoy that new corner. Excuse me, that new channel. We are running some promotions with a different exchange here, just as an FYI, guys, just so that you're aware. Bank is running a promotion right now up to 200 on your first deposit. We are running a campaign with them, so feel free to take a look inside the server. It's under the Bank section. It does move you over to a VIP 3 status. Not only inside of their exchange, but it also moves you into VIP inside of our server, where you have access to more educational content. These are some things that I've outlined for you guys before in the past. I won't dive into it too much, but all that information is sitting right over here inside of these areas, coupled with additional resources as far as books, trading strategies, all that type of jazz. So take a look at the Bank section, and you can see the campaign that they're running right now with the referral link that's in there. If you do choose to go through Bank and set up an account through there, be sure to send me your UID to make sure that your VIP status is upgraded, not only inside of the server, but also on the exchange. Actually, I'm going to pull up that hype view for you inside of VSA's corner. And he just updated it yesterday, just as an FYI. So Omar, if you're still here, but you know, one of the added benefits, it's not just me giving setups or ideas and things of that nature. We have other high quality traders that are inside there. So just come over to the search engine, type in hype, and then you'll see a couple different posts that are in there. He's been relatively pretty accurate, or at least diligent, with a lot of his updates. So be sure to check that out. You can see what he was looking at. He just posted just yesterday around 3:14. So the info's there, the resources are there. You just got to do a little bit of research inside the server and you'll find that info. Dealpat is another one that's inside our server. He also trades hype more frequently, so I'd definitely reach out to him. He's inside of a server. So we got a nice 7 thus so far. This is here on a 15-minute. Yeah, short-term wise, like 18, just for the day, 1830 is the level that really needs a hold. I mean, can we potentially come back and revisit that? Yeah, for sure. For sure. I think that's a possibility. Wrong window. There we go. We have a good amount of buildups here inside this area. We can see there's a small little floor, 1825. That correlates with the 15-minute open high, New York open high, so which is right on 1831. So I could see us retesting that area again. 1863, getting real close to that level. Real close to this level right over here. We can see it's actually starting to flatten out here in this area. So let's see. Doing decent on our entries so far. We are going to have a restart, just as an FYI. We're having a restart to the 1K, 10K challenge. You guys voted for it. I asked. You guys wanted it. So when the new month begins, I'll be sharing that with you guys. Same rules are going to apply for us. Not bad. Take that if that's the case. So right now I'm looking for this area right here. I want to see what occurs here at this level. And that's a 15-minute? That's 1901. I need to adjust that. Shoot. There we go. I had 1874. I was looking at a lower time frame. I think I was looking at an 8-minute. Yeah, I was looking at, this is the 8-minute. But 15-minute might be the move, because that lines up with what we were discussing from an EMA perspective on 4-hour. So those line up. So I'd be looking at 1901 inside this area, 1901, 1902 inside this area. All right. And I'd actually, you can run that a little bit tighter if you want to. It's really your discretion. Good move so far. So it was 1901. There's 2 bands at 1901. That's what's up. If it goes there, I don't know. I may ultimately start trimming out relatively soon. Even if it goes higher, I'm okay with the profits. You know, doing 1 band in a short amount of time inside of an hour. No complaints. No complaints. What do you want to put in your chart? I don't understand. I don't understand the question. Now, a lot of things change if, in the sense of like continuation wise, right? A lot of things change if this thing just decides to just start nuking. A lot of things change, meaning we're going to see some good moves to the upside. Which I would be completely giddy if we ran into that, you know, that weekly that we were just talking about a little while ago. I think we're looking at it here. It's a little bit cleaner over here. Yeah. Right. If that were to happen, if it's a big fat if. But you know, kind of the same thing I was sharing with you guys inside VIP. You know, I'm looking at picking up dips, right? I'm looking at picking up dips. If you're curious as to, I don't think I explained this, but I'll explain it here. This move, where did I see that from? Was that on a 15? Yeah, it was on a 15. It was this candle right here, right? So we had this move, this pretty bullish candle, but it gave me the understanding of looking at swing points from it. So you can see I measured from here to here, these swing points, and then we went into extension levels. Extension levels. I was calling for 1780s, 84, because that correlated with the wave 2. Right? That correlated with the wave 2 level that I was looking at. 1792 inside this area. We got a new 4-hour that just started 20 minutes ago. So that's where that came from. But this is why it's, for me, it's important to work with multiple fibs. It's not saying that you can't go wrong, because yeah, you can go wrong, but what I'm getting at is like, you can't overuse them. That's kind of like my point behind that. Oh, 1901. The line that we derived 19. Yeah, that's an EMA. You're referring to this EMA. That's what this is right over here. So something I've designed here, you can do minimal, you can customize it. This is what a minimal looks like. Just kind of makes it more faint. You can add all your different EMAs. This is more for macro. It's not a crossover EMA. We do have a crossover EMA in a separate indicator. Actually, I think that's right over here. Where's my crossover? Oh, it's not here. Well, anyways, my point. We have one. Essentially, this is just going to pull different data. You have ATR links, things like that. You can customize it. You can show all the ones you want. I'm usually just running with 365 right now. But if I wanted to add the other ones, I can. I can add all the other ones. You can see the curve up right now, 15-minute. This one's fresh. This one's new. I believe this one was just added to my arsenal. Yeah, if you want to read about it, just come over to my page and there's a full description as far as how it works, how to operate with it, things like that. Coupled with, I mean, there's a whole bunch of them that are in there actually. I can't get back to that page. That's crazy. Well, I'll get there at some point. So 4 hour there. I'm going to look at 15-minute here. Going back to what I was kind of explaining, you know, this is where this fib level came from. So when you see like extreme candles or extreme structures, things of that nature, test your theory. You know, test your theory, saying, okay, let's start with 50%. Are we going to claim like at least 50% of this thing? Okay, well, what if it sweeps it? What's going to be the extension of this level right here? Because this made a low. You know, this made a low. So what would be the extension from this low if it were to sweep a little bit more? And this is where you get these fib levels. And I don't know which level it's going to bounce off of. That's why there's several different levels that are there. I mean, it could have went all the way down to 1748 if it really wanted to. But if it bounced off of there, I was like, okay, well, the math makes sense. That's the level that it's going to go to. Giga long. I mean, dude, I would be happy even if we cleared this. I'd be happy with that. All right, let's just make the assumption we do one of these again. But we clear this at the same time. I'd be happy with that. 1830 is still going to be that area that needs to hold. And just for good measure, if you guys don't have the fib levels, these are the fib levels, but just as an FYI, they are inside of the server. I'll point you to them here in a second. You'll find them under trading strategies. And you're going to find them inside of the fib zones section. So right inside here. So all the settings that I have for the fib levels that I use, whether it be for LA wave thesis, wave 2, 3, 4, and 5, for ABC, I also have fib levels in there for harmonic patterns, and then I have what's called a full fib that's also in there too, that gives me my extension levels as well too. So all the settings are in there. There are some unique fib levels that are in there that are outside of your traditional, 0.76, 0.88. We have some 0.707s. We have some 0.66 areas, because from my experience in my studies, I've noticed wicks go to these like unique time frames, unique fib levels. So you'll find all those inside of here. So Again, if you're VIP inside the server, all this stuff is readily available for you. All you got to do is just do a little bit of research inside the server, and you'll find it. And if you can't find it, let me know. I'll point you in the right direction. And if it doesn't exist, guess what? We'll put it together for you. Kind of making it like a one-stop shop from an educational perspective. Everything that you could possibly need to help elevate your game as a trader. And yes, there are tutorials inside there as well for the indicators that I use. I'm still building that section out a little bit more because it's roughly going to be about 18 different videos. But the main ones that we utilize that you see here on the streams, those are inside the tutorial section. Look at you, Pikachu. 1876. You line right up with that 8-minute. Yeah, you line up right with that area. That area has to be taken. If not, we coming right back down. I'll probably take a little bit more profit off of my long. I wouldn't. I'm not going to short it. Even if it came all the way back down, it would have been a good short. I think 1901 because 15 minutes a little bit stronger data, not that much stronger, but in comparison to an 8 minutes, a little bit stronger in that area. And this area could act as fuel. You might see like short term one of these, or maybe even one of these, and then it just pulls right back up to here, right? Creating a little trap. Creating a trap. You could scalp it. I mean, it just depends on what kind of trader you are. It depends on what kind of discipline you have. Coffee break. Be right back. Bro, they're going nuts on Hyperbot right now. I can hear it. I don't know if you guys can hear all the pinging. Yeah, they're going nuts on Hyperbot. This guy just longed 1847. It's a smaller account. I know I'm saying 527,000 like it's a smaller account, but I'm just comparing it to like, real whales. Like real whales are going to be like north of 5 million. Hyperbot considers, 500,000 and above to be a whale. But you got some real big boys in there. I mean, we got our one guy. Where's our one guy? Oh, he's only 9 million in the red now. But this guy has been adding. He was originally at 128 when I first found him. Then he scaled, he de-risked to like 115. Then I think he de-risked to like 108. He took like 5 million out in profits, and then he's added back. I believe his original entry was like 2018, something of that nature. It's inside the chat, but I mean, this guy's got stones. You know, it's a $35 million account. And yeah, we're looking at $129 million position. Absolutely bananas. Absolutely bananas. Meanwhile, Tom Lee is like sitting like 9 billion in the red. And Sailor's like 13% in the red. So same thing, 1830s that area. Now we got another 9 failure. That's kind of showing its face right over here inside this area. What did they short? Did they short that? No, we didn't even get there. They probably got to a 3-minute, right? Oh, you're above. Nice. You're above. You're above. I just want to check something real quick. Let's go to a 4-hour on you. Yeah, I see what you rejected. I see what you rejected. 1, 2, 3, 4. What is that? 1830. Look at that. It so happens to put us right back at 1830 to retest that setup phase. Retest that setup phase. Ooh, I just saw that. And that's on a 4-hour? Oh man, yeah, look at that. Look at that. Dude, that would be so money. That would be so money. Because that lines up with what we were talking about earlier on the weekly. If it were just to come and test this area right over here, 2238, test this 100 EMA, excuse me, 200 EMA. This is a 9. It's rejecting a 9. Just not the best look you want to see. But if we come down to lower time frames, we can see we have some crossovers that are occurring right now. Yes, we got a sell dot on a 15-minute. We still got green dots there. Let's go to 55 real quick. Green dots as well there too. Got EMAs that are starting to boil back up. Actually, I'll leave the 200 on there. I'll leave the 200 on there. Let's go back to that 4-hour. Let's go back to 15-minute. Yeah. There's stronger EMAs here. I mean, I've already stripped some profits out of the long, so even if it came back to entry, I'm good with it. No complaints. No complaints. I mean, I will say it's a lot easier to short. Yeah, it is. It's more difficult to long in these areas. But I feel like longs from a scalp perspective, like this is the environment where you can actually really learn that discipline. Like this is that you need the environment to scalp, right? Like if you're new to scalping or you're trying to learn how to scalp, like this is that environment where you start conditioning yourself. Obviously utilizing, you know, smaller positions or even going into paper trading, it's really up to you. But just using smaller positions and condition yourself to get in, get out, get in, get out, get in, get out. I feel like the best scalpers are the ones that don't have FOMO, because their thought process is, I'm in and out so quickly, it doesn't really matter to me where price is going to go, because I'm going to find a new entry anyways. A scalper will find 10, 15, 20 plays in a course of like a 6-hour day, versus an intraday trader will probably look at maybe like one or two inside of a day, maybe three. And then you have your swing trader who will look at maybe one a week. So if you find yourself taking a lot of positions, most likely you probably have scalper mentality characteristics. But if you struggle with taking profits as a scalper, that's just because it's a reflection of the plan that you have, or at least the absence of a plan for you. Let me see what happens here at 1830. See if we get any type of reaction. I'm just going to round trip people that along that area. I haven't looked at River yet. River had a little pump. Look at that little sideways movement for River. I didn't get into River. Didn't. I wasn't like hawking it and looking for that entry. But man, if someone pulled the trigger on that one, that was pretty good. Still think it can go lower though. I still think it can go lower. I mean, this could always be a wave C. Don't get me wrong. That could 100% always be a wave C. It could just a shorter wave C. I think there's deeper levels. I feel like there's deeper levels. I want to see what happens here inside this area, really. I did long it initially here in this area, and it was a quick little scalp. I longed it here, and I exited right over here, and then I didn't touch it anymore. I didn't short it or anything like that. Just didn't touch it. Really don't need the shave heads right now, because I already know where they exist. And if you print like that, you're gonna have a 9 failure, and then the real test starts coming along. The real test is going to be these two levels, 1873, which on lower time frames, that's where 365 sits. This is where the 200 sits, and we can see that we've rejected off of it before. This was Monday's stream. This was Monday's stream, and I had shorted this. I shorted this pre-market with one of our night members, one of the students. So him and I were adding to our short positions here inside of this area. I did TP once we got to like these levels right over here, like 1843, 1847. Like I was already out on that short, and then I started building back on my long. Pushed into this area. I had a stop loss just below this wick right over here. Then I caught this move late last night, ran it up to here, took quick profits on that. It was an aggressive scalp, and then I went to bed, and then saw this move this morning. So there's always going to be an opportunity. That's kind of what this market's delivering to us. I know it's pretty frustrating if you have one bias mindset and you're like, I just wanted to go up, or I just wanted to go down, right? But if you don't find yourself overly attached to positions, I think you can make good profits. For me, at least. Yeah, no. That's decent. 1839, still 1830s inside that area. We're gonna see what this 9 does here. Right, because it could always do this right here, right? It could always do that. I mean, that's a pretty bullish candle though. 4-hour. I mean, you had the leading ones. I know I know this one. I know that pattern. Hold on. Research time. Let's look this stuff up real quick. Bro, I knew I saw this the other day, and I was racking my brain, and I literally just found it. I found the above the stomach information, but that's irrelevant. Kinda, actually, no. Yeah, I have an above the stomach right over here. Look for 2 candles in a downward price trend. The first candle is black and the second one is white. The white candle should open and close at or above midpoint of black candle's body. Is that 50%? Because that's really tiny if that is. Where's my 50? It sure didn't. Okay, so that's not valid. That's not it either. Yeah, that's what that looks like. It looks like a breakaway bullish. Bullish reversal 59% of the time. Number of candles 5 downward. Look for a series of 5 candles in downtrend. The first candle is tall black, and black followed by another black one. It opens lower. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Well, if I do it that way, if I go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. What does it say about the fourth candle, though? The fourth candle should be lower. Day 4 is a black candle, so okay, that won't work either. That won't work either. That's close. This needed to be a black candle. That's close to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And see, this wouldn't work either because this had to be this candle, so that won't work. And there's no gap, so there's not a gap there. It's not an engulfing. I mean, it is an engulfing, but I'm not going to utilize that. I mean, you can. I already know that one by memory. 73% reversal rate. If I base off of this candle right here. But I'm looking at this sequence right over here. This is the sequence that I'm looking at. Ladder bottom. Possible. No, not a mat hold. Not a piercing pattern. Oh, no, definitely not a piercing pattern. Not a side-by-side either. 3 black crows, no. 3 inside down, no. 3 inside line strike, bearish. Yeah, that might work. Let's check that out. Look for 3 black candles forming lower lows, followed by a tall white candle that opens below the prior. Nope, that won't work either, because that doesn't fit that narrative. I can't find it. And the closest I had to that would have been the above the stomach. But see, that won't work because I need that candle to be black. I don't know. I guess I'm just a candle junkie in that sense, where you see certain candles, you're like, oh, what is that? You know, it's kind of where the way my mind works when it comes to that stuff. All right, got a 9 failure. It sits right over there. A little bit of a hammer going on there. And USDT is trying to maintain and trying to flip what was resistance into support. Actually, I did it over here if I really want to bring this down. Right there. But see, that's got strong sell bias on USDT, ADX, and the curve. And then we're running into trend exhaustion. I want to add back over here. Let's add this back. Kind of running a little warmish. This was baffling yesterday, or the other day, excuse me. Running cool at these levels. It was like, that's bananas. You got a bunch of late longs trying to enter into the market. That's kind of what really kind of messes a lot of things up. Nobody wants to buy when they see, you know, push downs, things like that. Everyone wants to target lower levels. I'm not disputing that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, looking for lower levels. But then price starts, you know, pushing up, and then FOMO kicks in, and then you start people just aping in on positions, and money man's just eating all that up, eating all that up. It's a market for resilience at the end of the day. You got to be a resilient trader. Oh, I gotta use the restroom. I'll be right back, guys. Give me a second. I'm back. I'm back. No. Here's what you guys think. I just put a poll in there for you guys. And it's one of these twos. I mean, technically, if we get over to this level right over here, right? That was a form of support, and then we see we resisted it again. So I mean, that could work out. But then we have the same thing, aquí mismo. Actually, it's just a little bit lower. There's really not much. There's more data over here. So let's see what happens here. And that'll clear that 9. Let me get into Bytenix real quick. Let me bring this over to 1874. And I hope I'm wrong. This is one of those scenarios I'm perfectly okay with being wrong. You see, we always get sandwiched right in between that. Gotten sandwiched in there a couple times. A little pop up. See if we see a little sandwich in there too. And how long has it been since we've seen a bullish candle? Like a really, I think the last time we saw one was just yesterday, right? Yeah, that little tiny one right there that pushed us into that 1930. And let's go to higher time frame. When's the last time we actually saw something that was meaningful? I mean, that was, but we came pretty damn close to that same level. I always recommend people to look at, past data, because I mean, you may have heard me say this, but I'll just say it again just for good measure. That's what technical analysis is. It's reading past data and making a conjecture based off of that data. So, look at all these little runs that we've had from here. When we had like a V shape, what kind of candle created that? All right, study that candle. But excuse me, what led up to that? Study that type of stuff. Same thing over here. This is more like over here, right? You'd be studying this kind of move right over here. Make a log of it and just start putting them together, saying, okay, I've seen that before. And then you'll start conditioning yourself, saying, I've seen these patterns before. And it could be not just bullish ones, it could be bearish ones también as well. Looks like abandoned baby right there. That led to a good run, which was almost similar to the weekly. Yeah, look at that weekly. There's that little funky move right over there. Clear bullish engulfing right over here. Back in 2018. Oh yeah, that's same candle. Same exact candle right over here. That was right over on the 4 hour. Where'd it go? Where'd you go? I know I saw you. No, it's not you. Where'd you go? Right here. Same exact candle. And that looks like a Takuri line. If you're going to look at, look up a specific type of candles, that's a Takuri line. And the candles are always matter where they're positioned. Always matter where they position. One thing I do appreciate about candle analysis is that, it doesn't get any more real time than that. They give you probabilities, but volume and candles are going to represent price action. I mean, that's going to be your most real time data. So you could eliminate every single strategy that's out there. You can ignore indicators, things of that nature. If you become a master of studying volume and candles, you'll be 85% ahead of the herd. Sure, indicators are not needed, but they definitely make your job a lot easier. 1901 would be so juicy. But no, let's go even a higher time frame. Look at that. Look where that 200 sits. If we reach 2278 this week before the week's over, I will do a $100 giveaway. I will do a $100 giveaway. Yeah, see that right there? It's getting a little tired there. I'll post this inside. I can find our section. Where's our playback? There it is. Jeez, can't even find my own playback section. Excuse me. Yeah. So I want to see either like 18. I want to see what happens here at 1874 to like 1901 in that area. 1901's a stronger level, and we can see from a 15-minute, price action has come to the 200 before, but then it gets sandwiched in between, and we can see that there's a pretty big space in between here, very similar to when they crossed over, when the 200 crossed over to the 365, which is relatively bearish. It started sandwiching. Yes, it did pop above, but it starts sandwiching inside of these areas. another pop above, tried to cross over. This is where you had the sideways movement, and doom, doom. Then it rejected hard off of this. This is what we were shorting yesterday. And then now I want to see if we're going to get into this level or into this level. Just taking small profits off of the long so far on my side. So far today, we booked roughly around 478. Yeah, we booked about 478. So I'm completely fine, even if it came all the way back down to entry. I'm okay. I'm not looking for ads here at this area. At least not here. I would wait till later on in the day, see what occurs. But I'm just gonna let the rest ride. Move my stop loss to break even on the long. Yeah, real close to that 1874. Let's see if we can get into that. See if we can reject that. I'll try a little DCA on that one. Small little DCA in that. Yeah, so let's go back over to 4 hour real quick. And that looks pretty good. Let's look at 1 hour. That's decent. Anytime we get this RSI starting to curve over and money flow starting to curve over, we can see that we've gotten red dots here in these areas. I want to see something like this, right? Because that was from this move right here. I'd want to see something like that. That'd be the most beneficial. But on a 15-minute, it did make a higher high. It cleared that 9. All right, so that's cleared so far. Is there a shaved head here? Oh no, it's 10 cents higher. And there's no other shaved heads that are sitting inside of this little structure right here from 1930s down to here. And there's definitely no shaved bottoms. The next shaved heads are way on yonder, higher time frames. Let's go to 4 hour real quick. So the next 4 hour will be, what's the next 4 hour going to give me? It doesn't even matter where this current 4 hour stops. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, and that's still at 1830. So 1830 is still on deck, right? Like 1830 would need a hold if it's going to go higher for continuation. If it collapses underneath 1830 and closes underneath 1830, then the setup phase changes back again to a bullish setup phase. which we had a 9 failure here, so that warrants why we had this move right over here. I think that's the second 9 failure we had. And we haven't, or this is the one that we were discussing. Yeah, this is the one we were discussing just the other day. Yeah. So that warrants this. Yeah, I was looking for that being the 9 failure. I mean the close the gap 1837. All right, getting close. Getting close, boys. $1873.43. If we fail to break that, then the upper EMA is not going to come. We'll probably have a short-term revisit of that 1830 area. Come on. We got a 3 in this on this lead up phase though. So man, that looks strong. That looks good, man. That looks really good. That looks really good. I mean, price action can go anywhere, brother. It's the market's illiquid. So I mean, yeah, mathematically it can go all the way up to 2100s, really 2200s if we really wanted to. It just depends on, you know, how many buyers are going to continue to step in versus sellers. And I can give you the mathematics on it, but you know, TAs is quite difficult when we've had 6 months of a downslide. You know, so the question really comes down to, you know, did we bottom out? Did a wave A finish at 1744? And we got 4 days left inside of this month. So, you know, if the weeklies can reverse, oh yeah, that would be juicy. You know, if we can pull all the way up to here, you know, that's 1972. That clears that imbalance, and that puts us right underneath that 365. If we continue and we have continuation, you know, that puts us at 2053 levels inside of this area. We do have a higher low printed here on this week. You know, those are good signs. You can see it right over here. When we had this move down like this, we had a higher low, slightly lower low compared to the next, but nevertheless still a higher low. So we could be seeing something similar. You know, we had a low, then we had a higher low, then a slightly higher low, then a lower low. You know, very similar to this setup right over here. The issue is that we don't have any green candles yet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 weeks of red, 6 months of red. I mean, we haven't had a green candle in 6 weeks. If this week can close green, oh yeah, that'll be good. Then I would cancel like all short ideas until we got to, you know, higher levels that we've been discussing. That's what I was saying. I mean, I'll do a giveaway if we can get to these levels. We can get into this area right over here by the end of the month and close inside this area. I'll do a giveaway. I think most people are still they're just scared. They're scared to long, they're scared to short. The vast majority of people are just like, I don't know what to do here. And they sit sideline, and then the not the problem with that, but just the pattern that you see with that is that they become sidelined, and then they go and start chasing. And then they get wrecked. I had shared this yesterday, you know, inside my corner, you know, usually the best entry that you could possibly get into usually feels the most uncomfortable when you're in it. It just does. It feels uncomfortable. But you got to be resilient and, you know, have tight risk management. So what I'm trying to allude is saying, you know, if we have relief that's coming down the road, and we have all this compression that's, you know, building up on monthly, weekly, daily, if we have all this compression that's building up, even if you look at a stochastic RSI, you can see the compression as well too. I built another indicator for that as well too. I'll dive into that here in a second. But if you look at those trends, if you look at indicators, look at price action, look at patterns, when we're looking at that ascending triangle, you can see that compression that's going on. Tight risk management becomes a play, especially if you're running high leverage. In my opinion, these are ideal areas for spot bags where you can just buy and just walk away. You don't have to really worry about it. This is like perfect weather for them in that regard. For leveraged traders, you know, this is great weather for scalps, in my opinion. But if you're a swing trader, you know, you have tight invalidation. If you're running a high leverage and you're trying to swing play at it, you have tight risk management and sense of stop loss. but you have the discipline of saying, okay, well, that wasn't the pico bottom for us. You know, there's more of a snipe entry that I can get into. It's eliminating that position or de-risking it, and then either adding back or going back in with a fresh entry. Because going back in with a fresh entry it's going to erase any of the losses that you had from that burn. And usually if you're running a tight stop loss, your burn shouldn't be that huge, right? You're looking at maybe like 15% in the red and then cut and say, okay, cool, I'm gonna get into another position. And really looking for I try to stress this, like, you want to see these type of moves. Let me just hide this for a second. Where are you, just so I can find you later? Okay, you're inside here. Okay, I'll do it from here. Right, you want to see wicks. That's that's the liquidation that you want to get into, the liquidity. Right, people that bought in the side of this area, they're okay right now. Right now. Right now. But let's just go back further, right, to 2025. Sure, there was support here inside of this area. So anyone that longed, you know, from a support level, they're sitting inside of like, oh my gosh, when is this thing going to move for what? 3, 6, 9, 12 days. They sat inside that area, roughly around a little bit shy of 2 weeks, sitting and holding that position versus the guy that was on a lower time frame, maybe not necessarily a limit order, but maybe doing market orders, waiting for that liquidity wick to strike and then entering. This guy was sitting fine, whether he got in here or if he got in over here, he was fine. He or she, whatever, you get my point. They're fine. And so when you're trading and you see strong moves like that, you can utilize your fib levels, but if you see that liquidity wick go beyond that fib level, that doesn't necessarily invalidate. It's when you start closing underneath that fib level that level then becomes invalidated. But if you see a wick that comes through it, you want to gobble that up. No diddy, but you want to buy all that up in that area, so that way you have basically a liquidation level. Because right over here, I mean, these moves like this move that we had just yesterday, I think this was Asia, right? Yeah, Asia just opened up and just said, there's barely any liquidity that sits inside this area. Barely any. So what does that tell us, or how does that speak to me? You know, that's institutional money that just stepped in and just said, hey, yeah, we're just gonna dump. We're gonna shake everybody out. And New York kind of did the same thing this morning. I feel like New York, Asia, and London, they're consistently competing to see who's going to have better moves, right? Like, oh, you pumped? Well, watch this. Oh, you dumped? Okay, watch this. Like, that's been like the narrative for like the last 2.5 weeks between those 3 different sessions. You know, same thing right over here too, as well. You know, this was just the other day. This is, I believe this was on a Sunday, right? Yeah, that's a Sunday. Look at that. Sunday just opened, just had boop, dumped. Then you got a wick above it here. So then it started creating balance, right? You actually got some liquidity that started building inside of this area versus this fast little dump like this. So even though they may or may not be shaved heads, there's not that much liquidity that sits inside that area. So you want to see those wicks there, because that's the real battle. When you're studying and breaking down candles, you know, your body will always tell you who won that battle, right? Who won that battle. But the real fight is inside of that wick. It's inside that wick. You know, I was talking about this candle yesterday, you know, big fight here in this area, you know, and buyer stepped in, you're like, no, we got this, you know, Story time, right? Got to use your imagination here, right? So there's a big fight here going on in this area. But you know, sellers were just like, yeah, no, we're gonna push down. We're gonna push down. We're not gonna give you any higher. We're gonna gradually push you down. And so you see a shaved head here, not a shaved head, but there's really no liquidity that sits inside the zone. Now all this move right over here just started creating some of that. Cleared this imbalance. This imbalance was cleared. But like, look right above over here. There's not that much liquidity that sits inside that zone. There was definitely none that's out here, but this got cleared on this area. And then we have another level that sits right here, 1975. That has been yet to be touched. So I share that with you because when you're looking at your chart and you're like, okay, where can it possibly go? Look for the liquidity zones. Like, where's there an absence of liquidity from a lower time frame? Saying, okay, well, there's not that much liquidity. The market has to be balanced to some perspective. And then if it's difficult to find that, then you have the tools there to help you identify where some of these liquidity pockets are sitting. You can even go into something like CoinGlass. You can go into something like TapeSurf, Hyperbot maybe, but TapeSurf and CoinGlass, those are two good free resourceful tools that you can start learning to study and identify where their liquidity pockets are sitting at. Drill down to lower time frames, 3 minutes, maybe 15 minutes tops, and say, okay, well, based on today, based on this current move, this is an area where we should be going to. I mean, we could even get a subwave out of this too. We could even get a potential subwave out of this. It wouldn't really be you. It'd probably be you. Am I losing my mind here? Oh, there you are. All right, let's say we go there, and then I don't know where this level is going to be. I'll measure it out, but something like that, and then you'll get a move up inside that area. So let's just play devil's advocate here, and let's just say we got a small little subwave. And I'm going to go to the 200 here. It can go higher, and it can invalidate this thought. This is how I use fibs. This is how I work with them. Yeah, it seems about right. Seems like normal ETH behavior. Yeah. So that's just eyeballing it. But see, there's more liquidity. What did we just say? There's liquidity at 1974, right? We're working this 15 minute. So then if you have confluence with your fib levels, saying, okay, clear the imbalance, tap into a mathematical level, like 1988, somewhere inside that area, and then start making our way back down again. Short term wise, like, right? Short term wise. I gotta wait to see if wave 1 is developed. What are you doing, USDT? That looks relatively bearish for USDT. I'd be very shocked to see if this thing just yoinked right back up. Just this candle formation right over here. Not really a shooting star. Right. More of a spinning top. More of a spinning top. followed by a bearish engulfing. So you have two candles in a row from a 4-hour perspective that are showing. You have two candles from a bearish perspective that are making themselves known. And let's look at spinning tops here for a second. Yeah. 51% reversal rate. It definitely matters where it's positioned, not on a downtrend. This is on an uptrend. And so it just... it kind of does represent indecision. That has a 51% 51% reversal. Reversal 51% of the time. Right, and then you have a bearish engulfing. If I can get to it. Where are the engulfings? Those are dojis. Where are my engulfings? Are you under bearish engulfing, by the way? No, so you're going to be in the E's. Engulfing bearish. There it is. Right. Followed by your bearish engulfing. We have our uptrend. See our uptrend right here. First clue right there. Okay, 51% of the time reversal rate. Okay, I need a confirmation candle. Okay, it gave me a bearish engulfing, which then promotes a 73% because this too as well is a reversal candle. So you have two reversal candles printing back to back. That's why for me the short would be a hedge, you know, saying, okay, well, what if we get to 1901 and then we come right back down to 1830? Okay, that kind of makes sense, coming back and retesting a sequential count. I truly believe that 1744 was the bottom of wave A, and then everything going forward after that is working towards wave B. We need obviously March to confirm that. March would have to be the month that would confirm that. But this is just, you know, quick candle analysis. It's really difficult to read volume on USDT, just to be honest. So for this, you really got to utilize either sequential counts or you got to utilize candle analysis. We had an 8 and a 9 here, which this now got cleared. This balance got cleared. Let me adjust this just a little bit. There you go. And so tie that into wave A, B. So it looks like this so far. I don't know if it would be that aggressive in one move. It'd probably be spread out a little bit. I don't need this. I don't know why that's on there. And I don't need the ribbons. Actually, I want to look at ribbon real quick. Yeah, there you are. Okay. Right. So kind of similar to what we were talking about before. You know, when we get into these compression zones, it's utilizing these two pivot points right over here, because this was a local top. This was a local bottom that created another high. So it's utilizing these swing points. So compression zone, look how tight this is right over here, compression zone. And then once we start getting into this zone right here, these moves start to gradually grow and they get larger. So when I start to see that and I'm looking for a bigger move or a power move, down to the bottom in this scenario, first thing is, we do have an imbalance that sits right over here, a shaved bottom that sits here. We actually have some more that sit a little bit lower. But this is kind of where I'm going to start targeting dates. Sure, it could maybe go a little bit further out like that. That's mildly aggressive. This is ridiculously aggressive. So I'm going to meet it kind of like in the middle of the road. I mean, I would go cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs if it came down to here. I would be a very, very, very happy guy, but I don't think that's realistic. And then if I go ahead and take off the fib zones real quick, because that's just going to give me my dates. Wait, what did I just... That's what I meant to do. You guys get the idea with that. Actually don't need to... I'll leave those on there. I'll just hide them for now. Just so they're not in the way. So for wave 4, when wave 4 is developing, wave 4 is typically complex. And what I mean by complex is it's one of the most difficult waves to trade. It's definitely not a swing entry point. It's only a swing entry point if you entered at the pico top or pico bottom of a wave 3. But if you're trying to enter in anywhere that's, outside of that pico top, pico bottom, inside of a wave 4, very, very, very difficult to trade. And so then the question becomes, well, how long is this going to take to develop? And so then this is when you kind of drill down and think, okay, well, I had a wave 3. Now let me measure out an ABC. I can see the drop, for a wave A. Let me see if I can short a wave B. If I know I'm going to go into a wave C and I'm still inside of a wave 4, because wave 4 and wave C are ultimately going to align, that's going to give you confluence for where that next level is going to be. So in this scenario, if we flip this over its head, those are the extension levels. 1.41 lines up with 0.382 for where wave 4 could be. And wave 4 is relatively flat. Flat levels being 0.236, but we've already violated 0.236 once, right? We already violated. So that shows me that that's a weak fib level. We have yet to even come close to testing 0.382 or even 0.5. But if we bounce off of 0.382, then yeah, that's standard wave 4. That's a standard wave C. Can it go down even deeper? Yes, it could come down all the way to these levels because we still have flat levels that sit here, and this would put us right inside of that golden pocket. If it wanted to come all the way down to here, I would probably go cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, but it would clear some imbalance that's set here inside of these levels. But that's being pretty aggressive in that regard. I think this is being conservative and a little bit more logical as far as what USDT is going to do for a wave 4, because I believe wave 5 is going to put it at an all-time high for USDT, which is going to put ETH at lower levels. But as it makes its journey to these areas, I'm projecting that ETH would be sitting somewhere around 2,400 at the very least, clearing some of that CME gap in that area. And if it continues and saying what if it's wrong? What if it comes down a little bit lower? What if we get into some of these pockets inside of these areas right over here? We're still inside of flat levels. We're just not tapping any particular fib level. Maybe we come to this high right over here and retest that high somewhere inside this area. Then that puts ETH a little bit higher, 2,600s, maybe 2,700s. What if it goes even lower? If we start getting into these levels, then that's when we start looking at those higher levels like 2,900, 3K handles, so forth and so on. So what I'm trying to drive home is just, you got to operate level to level, see what's maturing inside of that zone. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. Trying to give you guys as much support in the sense of explaining these things. But this is a good catalyst thus so far. So shorts, if I'm shorting ETH, I'd be very, very careful with it. Be very careful with it, right? I would even make my stop loss a little bit tighter, right? In the event that we do get something like this, we do get something that prints. Let's adjust this. I think that's more realistic, to be quite honest. I think that's more realistic. Come back and test some of these levels inside this area, because USDT will probably sit here and get another candle that looks like that's a rising 3. That's interesting, but that's a failed rising 3. I'm trying to find an example for you guys. That's not bad. I could use that. That's not a bad example. Screw it. We could very well see that. And this would put ETH right back at those 1830s, maybe 1820s area. And then while it's dropping to these levels, this could actually put it maybe like 1901 to 1974. Because this was a resistance area, it broke out, it had a throwdown, then it basically trapped everybody, cleared that imbalance, then found support. So we could see something very similar to that all over again, where it comes down, tests this area, maybe breaks down through it, but then pushes right back up. Again, that's typical wave 4 behavior. It takes out both sides. And maybe this is overkill. And I don't want to make it sound like overkill, but however, not trying to negate what I just said. This too could be another pattern. A scallop top. If I can just get this thing to curve, that'd be great. Right, because a scallop looks like a J. It usually has that. And then you have the opposite. That, this would be a scallop bottom. And this is what a scallop top would look like. So those are patterns, nevertheless. But if we get a scallop top with a bearish engulfing with a spinning top, I mean, I don't know what else to say outside of I don't know how much more confluence, not you directly, but how much more confluence from a technical analysis perspective one would need to say, okay, this thing is topping out here. Then we can layer in, cipher waves. We can layer in DMI, things of that nature, and go, okay, ADX has peaked. It's going to create a valley at some point. Cipher wave is showing sell signals on a 4-hour. How does that correspond with my ETH analysis? Let's go to 4-hour here. Buy signals that are printing right over here. Actually, let's go to DMI. I don't think I have DMI over there. I don't need you right now. And I don't need you right now. Okay, so very similar. You're getting a peak that's occurring right over here with buy signal, which is spitting image of what USDT is looking like on the opposite side. So let's just make the assumption here. Let's say, ETH comes down to this area right over here, like 1804 or what have you inside of this level. I would not look to short this area if it goes back up. I wouldn't, because then I'm looking at it like this. All right, we didn't even come to any one of these levels. We just came to this area right over here. All right, this zone right over here. Then I'd measure this out, find the wave 2, and then wave 3 is going to go higher. I got a sore neck. So, kind of what I was showing you guys a little bit earlier, just playing devil's advocate here. Looking at a subwave. Sounds about right. So for me, me personally, I would remove this limit because I didn't tap into any one of these levels. I didn't touch any of these. I didn't touch any of these. I'm not one to say, okay, well, if we get back now to that level, now I'm going to start looking into shorting. Like, it had its opportunity to run into a 200 or run into a 365. It had its opportunity to do that. The fact that it failed to do that tells me that it's probably got a little bit more juice to go. But first, we'll probably come down to these lower levels, maybe even testing 1830 and then moving right back up. So like this order, I would eliminate. I wanted it to tap into that level, then come back down. That would have made total sense for me. But because I didn't tap into any level, I'm not going to go and start chasing that short, trying to get into that entry point. I would just sit to the side. I've already taken profits on the long. So overall, we're good in either direction that it goes. I'm just not hedged on that position currently at the moment. I'm going to remove this, just so you guys know. Now that I explained that, I would remove that. Not that I want to do that. Let's get rid of this. And this is all contingent if this just has an aggressive move down to the downside here inside these areas. Right? If it decides to pop back up, because this could be a rising 3, very well could be a rising 3. It's a little bit off. I mean, you do have 4 candles that are sitting there. But you could have a rising 3 that sits right here, which is a continuation pattern. I'm gonna do a little bit non-traditional. I'm gonna squeeze in that extra candle that sits right over there, mainly because I'm using a 15-minute. All right, but that's what that would look like, which so happens to put us there. Which then we would adjust here and say, okay, was that wave 1? But if we just continue to start nuking down from here inside of this area without ever touching any of these zones, and then we decide to move back up, I'm definitely removing that short limit because we'll blow past that at some point. And if you notice these EMAs right now, I don't know if you can notice, but right over here, it started curving. So slightly, very subtle, it's starting to flatten out. I mean, it did it here before, so it's not the strongest data to go off of. It's just something to acknowledge and recognizing, okay, are we going to be pushing it a little bit higher, or do we have some more downside? Not down over here, but down over here in these areas for us to tap into. Free education today, guys. Free education. I'm hoping you guys are learning something from this. 81% of you guys are saying relief from here. 19% are saying more downside. That's an interesting split. It's an interesting split. This next candle would be the confirmation for that if this was a rising 3. changes that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, we get back to here. That changes that settle phase, goes right back into a 1. That'd be ideal. Oh man, no. Yeah, that could be very ugly. I just saw that. You guys see the same thing? Ew. It's a symmetrical, but it has an 80% probability of going in the direction that created it. Bro, that would hurt. No way. No way. No way. No. No, we're not even to discuss that. No. No. Close your eyes. That didn't happen. Close your eyes, kids. Yeah, I can see that. But I mean, it's 50-50, right? It's 50-50. 80% chance it goes in the direction that created it. And I usually look at like an 80% threshold. But 52.8. That's pretty close. Yeah, that's pretty close. That's usually where it happens. Can I see that? Okay, yeah. Wait. No. That's the wrong... I don't know why. The wrong tool. I really don't need you, but I'll just call it delete me later. And I'm gonna get rid of you for right now. Fudge me. Like I said, it's a 50-50 pattern. It's a 50-50 pattern. That's why that 1874 short would be risky. 1970 I have quite a few spots that line up with 1974. 1901 being one of the EMAs, but we do have a 1974 level from an EMA perspective. I think that's on a 4-hour. Or was it a 1 hour? It's one of these time frames. I gotta find it. Here everything points towards higher. Gosh, that would be so juicy if we got to those levels, guys. That'd be very juicy. I know there's a 1974 fib around here, or EMA around here. Seen it. I synced it. Maybe I'm tripping. 1939. 1946. Okay. And let's go back over to the higher time frame. What does that put us at? 1981. 1968, 1981. Yeah. I mean, full disclosure, I'm hesitant on that lower time frame short. Just kind of looking at this stuff. Do I have any green dots yet? No, I'm getting there. That's a pretty aggressive candle. I mean, I got 4 more hours left on this thing. Look at that. That was pretty aggressive. And measure move puts us at 2480, which lines up with the CME gap. That puts us inside that zone. And this puts us in deeper liquidity pockets. There's some liquidity pockets in CoinGlass. There's a lot of people calling for this. I don't disagree with them. It's just pointing out that that's what they're calling for. Let's see. Let's make an adjustment to this fib zone real quick. Let's use a little bit more extreme levels. Right, because that was my extreme there. I get to the same math. Which that lines up with this right here. Because I'm close to that 80% benchmark. I'm trying to get my fib zones to line up with this area here. Bigger swings, but bigger compression. That's the only thing I don't like about that. So I want faster data. And I can see that these, these line up actually quite well, to be honest with you, because look, squeeze, 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 squeeze. Like all of these zones are like squeeze zones. 1 through 3 are squeeze zones. Then when you get into a 5 zone, that's when you really start to see it open up, right? Then you get into an 8, really open up. 13, pretty wide. Now we got a 21 that sits over here. Why do I have 24 on that one and 20 on the other one? What did I mess up here? All right, that's right. Did I mess that up? No, you're about right. Yeah. 24% rise from there. Okay, it's fine. Same difference. 2438, 1461. Yeah, you get the idea. It's fine. Huh. Perfect song. Breakout I need to see. Yeah, that's where that puts us. I mean, it's been tested a couple times. No, that can't work. Yeah, that can't work. Shoulder a little bit higher, but the shoulder's too big. It's a little too big. Option. Oh. Yeah, I could look at Soul. Let me just get through some of these ideas. I'm just toying around with some ideas, but I'll take a look at it, Tom. Is that even valid though? This shoulder's larger. Yeah. That's funny because that lines up with this idea. That's interesting. Super interesting. Whoa, where are you so? Damn, hold on. What? Did River just push up? Sure, the F did. Look at that. Look at you, Pikachu. Nice. That's invalidated. Yeah, now I need to see a... It needs an impulse if it's going to correct, if it's going to go up again. I don't remember where these came from. Oh, I think I do know where these came from. Yep. I definitely remember where that came from now. Yep, now I remember. I think I already have this on a daily, don't I? Yeah, there it is. There you are. I knew you were around here somewhere. Yeah, I got this as a wave 3. And then I had a wave 5. Where are you? I never saved you? Oh, that's sloppy work, Saint. You gotta save that, buddy. Alright, I'll clean that up later, because that's gonna drive me bananas. Yeah, I gotta clean all that up. Oh my. That just tells you how much I chart soul. But let's look at a 5 real quick. Because I do think we have a C that sits here on weekly. I think we have a wave 3 on a daily, which those two line up, you know, wave 3 and wave C. And now I need to measure a 5. I mean, that's assuming this is wave 3, so wave 4, but I can still measure a 5 from here. I think it gave me an absurd level. And I was like, there's no way that's happening. Yeah, that's absurd. That's not happening. That's too big. Yeah, it's too big. So logically, I need to take some of this noise off real quick. All right. I'm gonna get rid of, I won't get rid of that. I'm just gonna shorten that up. Oh, that goes deeper. What are you doing, Saint? It's not 0.88, so 0.93. What does it look like? Nope. So if I go to 100, it's definitely not 100. That's a little bit more realistic. All right, let's use our noodle here. How do I get here? .236. Yeah, because that was sharp. Ugh. Don't need that anymore. That's what I look like for Soul. I'll post it inside the playback section just so you have it. Actually, what I'll do is this. I'll actually put a short here. And it's pretty wide. Stop. But you need even if it goes into this area, you can burn that area and then build inside of this zone. That's kind of what I would be looking for. Yeah, I just popped it in there inside the playback section, so it's there for you for reference. But this, see, like this move right here, wave forward. This, if you go down to lower time frames, you know, like maybe like a 4 hour, 1 hour, you can find the wave 1, 1, 2, 3, all the way up into these levels. So then the way to like kind of give yourself confluence on a higher time frame here is go to maybe like an 89 minute or something like that, right? And then kind of look at this as saying, okay, well, if this was wave 1, I mean the origins wave 1, then all this move coming down here is wave 2, because I've come down a little bit lower, so I want to make sure I get those peaks. So what I would do here is just, I'm just going to do it quickly. This is obviously invalidated in that area, but let's make sure we get a wave 3 in here and see what that lines up with. You can tell I'm kind of a stickler for getting these tops. There we go. So 105, and what did that look like on daily? 109. 109 at 0.236. And what were we just on? We were just on an 89 minute. 105 for a 1.618 level for wave 3. So I'm gonna get rid of this because I no longer need that. That would mean this all this move up to here would be like wave 3, you know, building into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have a subwave that sits inside that area, and then just build it. So I would even maybe run this tighter Sorry about that. I want to make sure I give you the right information here. Let's get a wave 5 in there. Assuming that, you know, 1.618 was the area, so just make sure we get that a little bit more accurate. Oh, what am I doing? Because wave 5 could also be truncation, double top, or slightly higher above. Yeah, so 116. So let's go back over to daily. So like all this area right over here, like I'd start DCAing like from 105. It's not going to go to that. And get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of that. And we're making the assumption that we have a 1.618. If I was going to run it tight, I'd run it like that. And start building right around here. I would cut my losses here, but this still doesn't invalidate a potential wave 4. I would just look for the slightly higher level. Or maybe get a wick that goes right above it here inside this area, or maybe even up to like 136. It's kind of aggressive, but if we're gonna get this low down to here, it would need to come from here. If not, then this target wave 5 gets shorter. So for us to hit this target in particular, relatively, we need to be somewhere around here. We need to pause around here. I'll throw that in there, just, you know, in addition for you, just so you have it. I'm not going to tag anybody in it, but it's there for you from a daily and an 89 minute. Or actually all daily, sorry, all daily. That's what I would look at for Sol. Oh, in my buzz. And I'll look at some 2 weeks forward as well too. See what I can find on a 2 week on there. I already had an idea on this, so I wanted to piggyback off that idea. But what I will do here, you know, when I hop off stream is, you know, I'll create a clean chart for it and then kind of go from there. Actually, you know what? Can I do a clean chart from here? I sure can. I have no data here. Yay. Except for this, I don't know why are you synced globally? Oh. Yeah, that's fine. I'll just minimize it for right now. Well, that was the wrong button. There we go. Yeah, there we go. Okay, that works. I mean, that's a scallop top, and that's horrible. It's kind of what we were just talking about for USDT. And one way that you can identify that is because, you know, you get the roundness, because there are round tops. There are patterns that are called round tops. But now you have a round top, but then you see how it escalates like that. It almost looks like a upside down Nike check. I could draw some obscene pictures on here, but I'm not going to do that on stream. But you can see it. That's what it looks like. Okay. Why aren't you loading? Are you shy? Thank you. I loaded the wrong one. I loaded the wrong one. That's 2.0. I always do that. I need to rename that one too. I still have scalping's name on that. I must be losing my mind. It's you right there. No, I don't need you. I don't know why I just put you on there. I put you on there by accident. Dang it. I don't need you. Thank you. Okay, there you are. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, good. I think I've already mapped that out once. I'm not going to do that again. Which it's playing out, but that, man, that's ridiculous. You know what? Damn, that actually lines up with what we were talking about for a wave 5. And I think I had 38. That's one way that I would look at it. There's an accumulation zone right there that would just basically retest it. And that was a significant area as well too. You can see it right here. Multiple times. One, two, three, four. And yes, if you have trouble reading candles, we also do have a candle detector. I mean, that's a clear wave 3. Four, 5, that's a truncation, unless this gave me my 4 and that was my 5. Looks like a clear channel. I mean, it can't get this, no. It can't get that, so I gotta go this way. Unless, wow, descending broadening wedge, that's never good. That's never good. It's definitely never good. All right, what kind of support did you drop into though? You broke that. So I can't use that unless I retest it, which is like 150. It's on a 5-day. Even if I try to move it out, just playing around with it, then yeah, maybe I get like wick to wick. I feel like it's kind of forcing it. Because really you want to go from, you know, from wick to body. But I can see how somebody would potentially utilize that because, you know, you are still looking at the liquidity here on the bottom, but you're looking at where it closed above, and then it tapped right into that again. And now, you know, we tapped into this line again. It's somewhat forcing it, but I wouldn't disagree with it. I wouldn't think it's the strongest. I think maybe you can draw it out a little bit better. That's one thing that's great about TA. I mean, it's always subjective. So I don't need these anymore. Just I clearly see what those are. I can see the accumulation zone that sits right over there. I got a range that sits inside this area from accumulation to here, which it's come to this level multiple times, but then it had a massive breakdown right here. So like this is like the line in the sand right here. Lose that level, you know, that brings this level into the picture real quick. Actually, I don't even have to go that far. I can go right here. If you're bullish, you need this line to hold. If you're bearish, you want to see this target of 33 being tagged, because you're stuck inside of this range. Just like everything else. I'd do it. I'd do it. It's tight for a reason because I have all these other areas. I mean, that's your bullish thesis right there. $97. What's the next line? $119. That kind of lines up too. You gotta flip this, right? And that invalidates the wave 4 thesis that I was just sharing with you on a daily. Like if that gets flipped, then yeah, I would target range highs. But we were looking at, we were looking at this. This all gets invalidated if you can flip this level and close above it all like on a 5-day. All that changes. I'll write out a thesis for us today. Those usually take me a little bit of time. But I'll write something out and I will save this for you. I'll drop it in there. I'm not going to add any context to it because I'll come back and write to that later. Alright. I gave Soul all my attention, which I never do. Can we please come back to ETH? I have separation anxiety. Alright, cool. Give me 1 second. I can use the restroom after that. Oh, man. I was just thinking about this when I walked away. I would definitely be looking for longs on Sol, though. Don't get me wrong. I would definitely be looking for longs on Sol. I wouldn't be looking to short it here and there, this area, and say like, okay, we're going to 38 from here. I would definitely be looking for longs and building. You know, some of these moves are pretty quick as we move to the downside, and then, you know, equally fast as we move right back up inside of that area. So I would be looking at longing those areas into that wave 4 level that we're talking about, and then looking for shorts, you know, so 105 to like 116, 113, 116 inside of those areas. I'd be looking for those shorts. All right, all right, all right. We have streams on that. Look for the emergency stream. We have our own server now. Server information's inside the description. That's a good little 70, 60 pip move from that bottom right there. That's a good one. Vitalik is selling more? My goodness. Bro, what is my guy doing? $21 million he sold this month. Bananas. That's bananas. That's bananas. All right. I'm gonna start winding down here a little bit for us. Now, do you guys have questions about the setups that we discussed today regarding ETH or any of the plays? Really, if you have any questions about USDT, questions about ETH, things like that. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. You know, to open up Q&A for you guys. Answer some questions. I wouldn't know how to recommend any of those to you. Because I don't utilize ICT. I mean, SMC I do, which they're very similar, but I don't utilize ICT. I manage and look at order flow just to kind of see where the market's at, if it aligns for confluence, but I don't base my analysis on there. All the different trading strategies that I utilize are inside of our server. It's under the training ground section. There's free material there from educational on different types of content. Harmonics, Elliott waves, TD9 sequentials. I like to utilize real-time data with price prediction and then layer it on top with indicators to give me confluence. A good question. I just couldn't give you any advice or guidance on that. I wouldn't be the right trader for that. A technical guy. Not that type of technical. Yeah, if you go into our server, as I was trying to mention, if you go into our server, you can see everything that's related to my strategy. And it's not just my strategy that you'd have to follow. We have a good amount of decent traders that are in there. Really good traders, actually. I take that back. We have good traders that are in there. So inside this journal section, right over here, there's several different traders that are in here that are posting different ideas and different strategies. But if you have an interest as far as how I trade inside of our server under the VIP section, you will find a training ground section where it outlines all the different types of strategies that I utilize. So all of them are found here. All the context is going to be inside of this section. And if you have VIP access, you'll be able to see some of these strategies as far as like the tutorials that are related to them. So just pop into there. That's really all I can drive home for you. All the information is there. And then if you have questions or confusions related to it, then feel free to DM me or put it inside of the war room. There's several different traders that have been trading with me for a couple years now that are familiar with it. So there's more than one person that could answer it for you, or at least articulate it in a way that you could understand a little bit better. I'm sorry that you've been going, that many months being unprofitable, but that's part of the journey. That's not a reflection on you as far as a trader. That's just part of the journey. You're going to have those months. You're going to have those spans where nothing's just working your way. So those are the opportunities, in my opinion. I feel like those are some of the best opportunities and times to really refine your skills and put your head down and really dive into the books, dive into the strategies and testing. Not confidence wise, don't put your head down. Confidence wise, meaning just stiffen discipline. That's really what I'm trying to drive home. So there's over like 200 members inside of our group right now that can help you with that. It wouldn't just be me. There's a group of us that could assist you. Discord is 100% free. VIP is 100% free. Just check out the channels to see how you can gain VIP access. We do have pre-market discussions inside the VIP section, inside the VIP war room. So if you guys are wanted to see what that looks like before the market actually opens, so you can be positioned, check out the VIP war room. Actually, I think a couple of us started building some longs inside those areas early this morning. Maybe not everybody. Maybe everybody just kind of sitting idle, like, I want lower, I want lower, I want lower, but and I say this respectfully, but people that are calling for lower and lower, lower, that's not being greedy per se. I understand some of the thought process behind that, but again, man, we've had 6 weeks of red candles. We've had 6 months of red candles. So relief is around the corner, if not already here. Based on that last move down to like 1800.65. As you guys are familiar with me, I've been with me for a while. I've been a faith-based trader, an individual. That's at least how my thoughts align. I feel convicted if I don't actually pray over my people, in the sense of who I'm trying to guide as best as possible. So that being said, I do want to share something with you guys, so that way you guys are going out the right way. That being said, Father, thank you for today, for the wisdom shared and the time we had together. As we log off, I lift up every trader in this community to you. Your word says, by patience, possess your souls, and take heed and beware of covetousness, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of the things he possesses. Father, help us be patient with our trades, to wait for our levels, to honor our plans, to accept our stops, to let good setups mature without panicking. And Father, burn out greed from our hearts. Yes, Lord. Where we want just a little more, teach us to be content, disciplined, and grateful. Remind us that our life, our value, and our identity are not in our P&Ls, but in Christ alone. Give us clarity instead of fear of missing out, discipline instead of impulse, and peace instead of fear. Guard us from revenge trading, over leveraging, and chasing. Let your spirit nudge us when we're about to trade from greed or emotion. Give us the strength to step back when we need to. We place our accounts, our decisions, and our emotions in your hands. Grow us into patient, humble, and wise stewards. I pray all this in Jesus' name. And everybody said, amen. What alarm was that? I could have sworn I just heard an alarm go off. Lower, yeah, I mean, there's always one in the crowd. You always find a mocker in the crowd. There's always one. Even the Pharisees and Sadducees mock Jesus, so it's all good. take it with grace. Bam. All right. Any other questions? Anything I can answer for you guys? I'm gonna be inside the server. I'm gonna get some grub here in a minute. Gotta feed me. Hungry. But hopefully you guys have a good understanding as far as what these setups look like. And if not, for whatever reason, like I said, you guys always know, server is open for DMs to me, or if you want to put them in the war room. If you were looking for something a little bit more exclusive, look at the VIP war room as well too. If I have any fellow students that are in here, you guys have a private section that's also carved out as well too. So just post it inside of the trade reviews section. Tomorrow is an off day for me in the sense of rest. So Wednesdays, just trying to rest altogether. Not a structure, looks like it's reversing. Are you talking about reversing to the upside or reversing to the downside? What did that top out at? 1861, which is basically this level right here, the support level. Yeah, you just rejected that. That's horrible. That's horrible. ETH is so weak right now. None of these buyers are pushing the buy button. They're all pushing the red button. You're long, so we go up. You heard it here first. You got a market maker here. All right. I appreciate you guys vibing with me this morning. Overall, I felt like it was decent in the sense of moves. The short didn't come to fruition, but those ideas are posted inside of the server. Like I said, if we had a sharp move here first to the downside, then that would have been a wave one on the lower time frame, subwave wise. Then I would eliminate that. But the 1874 up to like 1901 areas, those are still on the table for me. I'll be managing those and looking for signs of weakness once we get into those levels. Predominantly, I'm going to be looking at DMI and I'm going to be looking at cipher waves for reflections of that trend. Coupled with that, from a candle analysis perspective, I'll be looking at some heat maps to identify if we are in fact running hot inside those areas. So I'll be guiding you guys through that as I do enter into those positions. If I choose to enter into those positions, I'll be making it aware to you guys inside of my corner so that you guys have an idea as far as what I'm going to be working with. Other than that, the remainder of the day, got a couple hours before bell close. Could get a little stagnant, get a little boring. Just be patient. As we were just discussing, just be patient with some of your entries. Let those moves come back to you. Tuesdays and Wednesdays are going to be your more profitable days overall. So if you positioned yourself accordingly in the beginning of the day, look at just taking some profits here. The objective is to be disciplined, but also be profitable with that. And that profitability is going to reflect based on how disciplined you are as a trader. So if you are entering into trades and you're not finding yourself to be profitable, it's not better trades, it's better discipline, and that's really going to be a test of that altogether. So don't be afraid to take some profits here at some of these levels, leave some runners, and then look for some add backs altogether. Continue to be safe while you're out there, and above all, guys, God bless you, and I'll catch you guys on Thursday for our next stream. Much love, and thank you again.